Hello there, it's Detective DJ, and welcome to our weekly show, The Crime Crushers. This week, we have a very interesting episode for you, and it's called The Senator's Secrets. Senator had many secrets, and it's probably what led to his undoing at the end. But without giving much more away, let's start, okay? The crime scene is one that is set in the ballroom of a revolving restaurant. There were 20 tables, and each table contained 6 seats. Almost all of the seats were taken on this particular night at this particular event. Staffers and spouses were in attendance. The senator's wife sat right beside him, and the room was festively decorated in the Christmas spirit. All kinds of decorations. Even Santa Claus was there. The main course had not long been served before everything went awry. The senator had clutched at his chest and had been slumped over, and those at nearby tables had been quick to notice. Someone called an ambulance, and someone had unbuttoned his suit jacket to help him breathe. Someone else had unbuttoned the top buttons of his shirt. However, by the time the ambulance arrived, the senator was dead. Forensics found the senator's reading glasses, his wallet, and his cell phone in his suit jacket. There was a small briefcase under his chair, and that briefcase contained the notes for his Christmas speech. Some people were still eating their first course when the senator collapsed. On each table there were 2 bottles of wine and 2 bottles of champagne. Security agents had managed to cordon off the senator's table before forensics arrived. All of the other guests were asked to stand against a wall, and those waiters who were present were also asked to do the same, so everyone had to stand against a wall. Now, we are sort of guesstimating as to how the murderer thought, or what he thought, or how he went about planning his dirty deed. We think that the murderer chose this location because it was a revolving restaurant. It was in the ballroom of a revolving restaurant. The perfect occasion would be the senator's annual Christmas party, and the victim was there, of course, because he was celebrating with his staff. Okay, let's go on to part 2. Let's look at some of the motives that we discovered, or probably again are guessing as to what could have led to the senator's murder. Someone did not want the senator to run as president. The senator had recently ruffled the feathers of some mafia bosses. The senator had recently reneged on some favors that he had owed to some corporate big bosses. And finally, the senator had been battling to keep a secret hidden from his past. Here's what our investigation has shown. Senator Christian Jansen was a young and upcoming senator. He had recently signified his intentions to run in the next presidential election. For the most part, he was a very likable candidate, but there were some who felt otherwise and felt that he was too young. And there were some who felt that he would be a hindrance or danger to their aspirations. There were some who felt that another candidate named Nick Sanders would make a better president. They felt that Nick would be easier for them to deal with than Christian. Now, Christian Jansen was also saying that he planned to clean up the mafia, and if elected, he would pass some legislation to outlaw their more lucrative activities. The mafia was definitely afraid of this, Now, Christian had once been close friends with the mafia high-up, but not too long ago there had been a big fallout, and Christian wanted this kept a secret. This person did not want Christian to run, let alone win, if he ran for the presidency. He had also promised to give special tax breaks to some large oil companies, but did not mention it in his platform, up till now anyway. He also wanted to keep this a secret, but had recently changed his mind. As a matter of fact, he was promising stiff penalties if any oil company were to create oil spills. Some large oil companies had given him large sums of money for his campaign in return for special treatment. And he had recently written to 2 of them reneging on his promise. In the past few months, someone from his past had also visited him, and they had reminded him of a dark side of his past. Someone knew that the senator had committed a crime, and that someone had covered up for him. They had wanted Christian Jansen to run as president, and they felt sure that he would win, and if he did win, they wanted a big post in his cabinet. The senator had refused to give in. Very, very interesting indeed. Now, let's look at some of the characters that we have identified with this murder. We have Eric, Paolo, Scott, and Lee. Eric did not want the senator to run because he felt that Christian Jansen would be too difficult to handle. Paolo was a mafia boss who felt that the senator would be a big danger to them if he won. And Paolo knew about the senator's previous association with the mafia. Scott, who wanted to punish the senator because of the senator's recent reneging on his promises. And Lee had something on the senator from his past. Something that could really damage the senator's image if he decided to run for president. What was the cause of death? Senator Christian Jansen died of a massive heart attack. This was caused by an injection, and the injection contained a massive dose of steroids. Now, this is how we feel it was done. Before attending his Christmas dinner, Senator Christian had visited his doctor for his annual physical. He had been doing this for many years now. He always had his physical just before his annual Christmas dinner. All of his friends and close associates knew of this ritual by the senator. On this day, the senator visited his doctor for his usual physical. But during the course of the visit, his doctor had to step out to take a call, and this is when the killer pounced. He stepped quickly into the room, dressed as a resident, and he told the senator that the doctor had asked him to give the senator a flu vaccination. He told the senator that it was best to take it this year because they were anticipating a bad flu season. The senator had not really objected. The killer had done his job, gave the senator the injection, and faded away. The doctor returned a few minutes later and concluded his physical. Now, he never offered the flu shot to the senator because in former years the senator had always mildly objected to taking it, so the doctor just didn't bother giving it to him or offering it to him this year. The killer knew that it would take a few hours for the injection to do its work, and he left via the back door. His work was now done, and he was going to collect a hefty paycheck. There you have it. That is the end of part 2. Alright, on to part 3, and here is where I summarize for you and where you start to think of who killed poor Senator Christian Jansen. Okay, so you have a crime scene. It's Christmas time. It's a Christmas dinner that is being held in the ballroom of a revolving restaurant. The scene is where you have over 20 tables, 6 place settings at each table. When the forensics arrive, the security agents have backed all of the guests against the wall, and they have cordoned off everything. All the waiters who were in attendance were also standing against the wall. The senator is dead. He died before the ambulance could get to him. His wife was in attendance along with all his staff members and their spouses. Let's briefly talk about the suspects again so that you get a picture in your mind as to what you should be thinking of. We had Eric, who did not want the senator to run as president because he would be too difficult to handle. We have Paolo, who felt that the senator would be a danger to his organization if he were to run and become president. And he also had something on the senator about the senator's past association with the mafia. Scott, his company wanted to punish the senator for having reneged on a promise to his company that he would give them special favors in return for a huge donation by Scott's company. And Lee, who had something on the senator from his past, if exposed, would threaten to really damage the senator's public image. Let's go on now to part 4, and I have some very important questions for you to think about, and this is going to help you determine who the murderer was, okay? Who had the most to gain if the senator became president? Who had the most to lose if he became president? Those are the 2 major questions you need to think about before coming up with who you think did the murder. Now, let me give you some more revelations before finally telling you who has done it, okay? All 4 suspects had very strong motives for wanting the president dead. Eric knew that the senator would not be easy to deal with if he became president. Eric was the present deputy head of the CIA, and he had aspirations to become the head of the CIA under the next president. And he also knew that Christian Jansen would appoint someone else if he became president. Christian's views were not the same as his or others within the CIA. Nick Sanders, who was mentioned before, had previously stated that if he were to be elected as president, he would appoint Eric as his head of CIA. At all costs, Christian could not be allowed to run as president. Paolo also wanted Christian dead. His organization wanted Christian dead as well. If he became president, he would put a huge dent in the mafia's activities. This would mean a huge loss of revenue for the mafia, and the mafia also had a huge account to settle with Senator Christian Jansen because of the past fallout. Paolo was ordered to ensure that Christian did not run, and he was given the necessary funds to hire a hitman. Scott, his company, had contributed large sums of money to Christian Jansen's campaign. In return, Christian had promised to give a lot of favorable treatment to Scott's company, but Christian had recently reneged on this promise. Scott's company was very angry because it was going to mean millions of dollars in loss of revenue to his company. Scott was also given instructions to ensure that Christian did not run and that Nick Sanders be given all the help possible to become the next president. Scott was told to find a way to murder Senator Christian. Lee had an axe to grind with Christian. When they were at college, Christian and his friends were partying one night, got into a car accident, and Lee's twin brother was killed. They had been returning home from their graduation party. Christian was drunk and driving, and Lee was in the front passenger seat. Liam, Lee's twin brother, and his girlfriend were seated in the back seat. Christian drove the car into a tree. Liam was killed and his girlfriend seriously injured. She survived, gave birth a few months later to a baby boy, which she named Liam. But somehow Christian managed to get off and Lee was made responsible for the accident. Lee was sent to jail for 10 years. And Christian's dad used his influence to get the sentence reduced to 3 years. When Lee was released, Christian's dad paid for Lee to attend law school. Lee managed to make a name for himself, and now he wanted payback from Christian. However, Christian was not going to entertain any sort of blackmail. So who do you think did it, folks? Well, I'll tell you who did it. It was Lee. Lee hired a young intern to do his dirty work. And he promised the young man $5 million if he could successfully give that injection to the senator that would eventually kill him. The young man had to enter the doctor's office on the day of the senator's physical, and he had to find a way to give Christian the lethal injection. The intern hatched and carried out his own plan. He hired his friend Brad to enter the doctor's office and pose as the doctor's nephew. The friend, Brad, told his story to the receptionist, and she called the doctor, telling him that his nephew was there to see him. The doctor did indeed have a nephew called Brad, so it was very easy to do it. And the intern's friend had managed to present himself to his uncle, the doctor, looking very much like his nephew Brad. When the two had come face to face, the friend feigned confusion and told the doctor that he had made an awful mistake. His uncle was someone else and not the doctor. The doctor chatted with him for a bit and then returned to Senator Christian. But by then, the intern had completed his job and was gone. The intern and the friend met up at a nearby coffee shop and exchanged their stories. The intern paid off his friend and both left separately. But weeks later, the doctor remembered the incident and an investigation was quickly launched. Withdrawal of a large sum of money was traced to Lee's account, and the rest is history. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. We're very glad to have you, and we look forward again to having you next week. Have a great week, and bye-bye.